Hey everyone, I just want to check to see if you guys can hear me. So if you can say in the chat, yes, that would be awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Tiffany Grant, and I would like to share some practices that I use in conducting some live sessions. Now, I am going to turn you over to our moderator, Chris Kobe.
How you doing, Tiffany? Thank you very much. I am Chris Kobe. I will be your moderator today. You can find me on Twitter. Just some things about me as we get started. I am passionate about providing equitable access for all students. I was a classroom teacher and school-based administrator for 27 years before coming to NCVPS, and I see some of you in the chat putting in the number of years that you've been teaching. I love to see that. I am currently the district and school liaison for NCVirtual, and away from NCVirtual and education, I am a veteran, a cancer survivor, a 6-time Iron, a proud dad of 2 20-somethings, and as I turn it over, I just want to let you know you are in for a treat. I personally enjoy working, have had the opportunity to work with Tiffany on several projects. She's an outstanding teacher, has some wonderful ideas that she'll be sharing with you today. And I will be here in the background along with Melissa, monitoring the chat, trying to answer some of your questions. And periodically, I will come back in to make Tiffany aware of some of your trending questions. So please feel free to put those in the chat as we go throughout. And with that, over to the capable hands of.
Ooh, thanks for that introduction, Chris. Okay, so the purpose of this meeting or this webinar is to provide a way to structure your live learning sessions and to provide ways to encourage engagement and to discuss ways to prepare for a live learning session. Now, if you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat. We do have some breaks periodically through this webinar where we'll take a chance to stop and answer some questions. And like Chris said, he will be providing some trending questions. Now, a little bit about me. Again, my name is Tiffany Grant. I am a math teacher and I have been an educator for nearly 15 years. For the past 5 years, I have taught virtually. I have been with North Carolina Virtual for 5 years, and just recently I have started working at North Carolina Cyber Academy, which is a fully K-12 virtual charter school. I currently teach middle and high school and college students. So my motto is to work smarter, not harder. Now, I see in the chat, I have to give a shout out to Onslow County. I was born and raised in Jacksonville. Right now, I live in Wake County. So what I want to do really quickly is just poll the room. I see I have a variety of years of experience. What I want to know is, what platform is your school using? Are you using Canvas, Zoom, Blackboard, a variety of different tools? That just kind of gets me knowing what I should focus in on. Okay. So looking at the chat, I'm seeing a lot of Canvas and Google Classroom, some Class Dojos, Zoom, a variety of different tools depending on the grade level. Awesome. Now, again, if you want to make sure that everyone is seeing your chat, if you look at the 2, you can click on that down arrow and make sure that it says all panelists and attendees. Oops. Okay, so let's talk about ways that you provide instruction. Now, I would like for you to type your answer in the chat. Now, think about ways that you did in your face-to-face classroom, or you can talk about what you do right now. How do you provide instruction? And a follow-up question is, what's the purpose of your instruction? I know we are in unprecedented times, and transitioning from a face-to-face classroom to a virtual classroom can be a little overwhelming. You have a lot of different tools that are thrown at you, a lot of different things that you have to do, documentation, so it can be overwhelming. So if we can kind of take a step back and think about what we do in our face-to-face classroom, we can then take those great ideas and those practices that we typically do and transition it into the virtual classroom. Awesome, so you've been recording and putting things in YouTube, awesome. Ooh, I've never seen Seesaw before. So we're just taking a break and thinking about things that we do in our actual classroom. And I'm going to show you some ways that I do in my virtual classrooms. Remember, my motto is to work smarter, not harder. So I'm going to be sharing some things that I've found to be helpful. Awesome. I have a lot of experts in this room. I've never seen Seesaw. I have to Google that afterwards. Awesome. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is structuring your live lesson. Now, these are just some things that I typically use in my class. Now, remember, I teach at North Carolina Cyber Academy, which is a virtual school. So the thing is, it's a little bit different where we provide our instructions. We have live lessons once a week, whole group. I also have one-on-one sessions with students and small groups as well. Think of this as your regular classroom. It's about an hour long. So the things that I have in bold are things that I typically have each and every time. And again, it kind of depends. Like what I'm seeing in the chat is that sometimes you're doing whole group, sometimes you're doing small group, sometimes you're posting ready-made videos, sometimes you're going over most missed concepts. So awesome job. And again, remember, I teach middle and high school. So I know that I have a lot of elementary folks in here. So I know things can be a little bit different. So hopefully the strategies that I present can be used in other ways, or at least trigger some things that you can do in your own individual classrooms. Now, I typically start off with warm-ups and just general announcements. I know with your different counties, we have to make sure that we have an objective. And I always like to have some type of key terms, and it depends on the instruction if I'm reviewing or if I have guided practice. And I like to include games and then sometime an exit ticket, which is oftentimes a Google form that I create, and then I go over that the next class. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some different pieces of how I start my class and just give you some examples of how I structure the class. Now, starting the class, I love using QUIA. Now, remember, I like to, work smarter, not harder. And I know that sometimes we as teachers, we sit in these webinars or sit in trainings and they throw a whole bunch of different activities at us and it's hard to kind of focus. Now, this is something that I love to use. This right over here, you can create your username and your password. You can actually have an actual paid account. Oftentimes you might have it for your department, or you can share it with a couple of teachers. I tend not to create activities because it can take a lot of time. What I like to do is use the shared activities down here at the bottom, and you can see that there are a variety of different activities. Let's see. Again, remember, I teach math, but you can go when you look at science or English or whatever. And then oftentimes, once you find a really good person, I tend to go and find the teacher, and then I go and use a lot of different websites. So I teach financial management with NCVirtual, and I love using these different types of activities. Now, what I want to do is kind of show you some different activities that you can actually use. So I'm going to go back to the home. And I know that math can be a little overwhelming at times, so I apologize if you're not a math person. Again, you can use this for science or social studies or English. I like using this because they're ready-made activities. Remember that these are shared activities, so sometimes you need to make sure that you vet the activities, because oftentimes there are mistakes. But what I really want to do is just show you some of the different types of activities that are up here that are ready-made for you. I love using, this is Rags to Riches, which is kind of like a multiple choice type Jeopardy type game. And they have the activities already there made for you. There are also Battleship, going back in the day where you are, the different camps, where I remember using Battleship. The challenge with that is that sometimes kids don't know how to play it. So the thing is, you're going to have to kind of show them how to do it. Now, again, this is for math, but they have it for all of the different types of things. I lost my train of thought. They have the different types of subjects. Challenge board is a really good activity where it's kind of like Jeopardy. The only challenge is you have to actually type it in correctly. And sometimes if you misspell it, they will take points off. But you can go in here and you can look at the different types of activities that are over here. And it just kind of gives you a way of something, just kind of having a little bit of a shortcut where there are activities already there for you that you can use in your classroom. And what I typically do is when I come into my live lesson, I will share my screen. And when I share my screen, then the kids can we can do it as a class. And even though we're talking about virtual instruction, you can sit here and you can have this in your actual classroom when we do return to normal. And it's really easy to share these activities. You can just go and click on this and copy the URL, and you can give it to your students. So just another trick that you can use in the back of your pocket. Now, if looking at a game or doing things virtually, or having a web tool is overwhelming to you, you can use things that you already have in your class. This right over here is a Connect 4. And this is probably, yes, second grade math. And this is something that I took for my daughter's class, where the teacher had it on Google Classroom, and they took a picture of their finished work and put it into their classroom. You can do this as an actual class. So perhaps maybe the students did this, and then you go into your live lesson, and then I would always mute the kids at first, because then they're all talking in there. And then one at a time, they can select one of those, and then you can go over it. Now, what I like to do, let me see if I can exit out of this, is, do you see this little paint up here? If you hit web paint, it's a Google add-on. So in order to use it, you have to make sure that you're in Google Chrome. And I want to say, if you go and you select maybe web paint or Google web paint, then you can add it onto your board. But I like doing this because I can use my mouse, and I'll show you some other ways that you can write on your screen. And I can, remember I'm selecting 4 and we want to do this problem right over here, the students can, talk me through this, and I can show them, I can actually write on my screen, and we can talk a little bit about this. Now, again, this could be in anything. Now we're in Zoom. I actually like doing Google Hangouts, because the kids can actually share their screen. You'll have to kind of talk them through that, but then you can just kind of like how you're in your class and you're at your overhead, I'm dating myself, the document camera, and you have students that will go in, and one person will do this and another person will come up. So you can share your screen. It takes a little bit of time to, give your class over to another student, but it's just something that you're already used to doing. Now, let me see if I can go back to this. Oops, not that one. Now, this was the activity where perhaps the students went and they completed their activity, and I have an actual little text box where I can provide feedback, and we can go over it as a class. So you can go in and you can either type in the chat or type in the actual box, or if you feel kind of up to it, you can click on over here. I actually use a Surface Pro, and I'll talk about that a little later in there, where I actually share my screen, and then at the bottom there's a little tool where I can actually write on it, and it just makes it a lot easier, so I don't have to worry about using a mouse. But this is just a different way to do what you normally do in your classroom, but do it online. Now, you can start off with a game, you can talk about, previous lessons, you can help them identify different mistakes. So I'll keep this up here really quickly, and I want to see if anybody can see the mistake. What's the tool? I'll show in a little bit. What the tool I'm using to write on the screen is called Web Paint, and I'll show that in a little bit. I have a lot of different tricks that I've learned along the way. Maybe not the best, but something that I would like to share. But over here, this is our new math of actually decomposing a number. And I actually put a little white box over here to show that they're missing, it should be 7 green sticks, but they only have 6 green sticks. So this is something that, again, you can show up on your screen, and if you're in a Zoom meeting or if you're in a Google Hangout meeting, you can share your screen, you can see your kids on the side, and you can write on the screen. Or the kids can write on the screen. Now, Zoom is a little bit different. If you go to Zoom, especially if you're in your room and you share your screen, there's a little button up top where you can annotate, and again, you can write on your screen. So there's several different ways that you can actually write on your screen. Another thing that you can do is, for my language arts teachers, if I'm reviewing skills, for example, I want to talk about punctuation and I want to, rewrite something, or I want to do a constructed response, it doesn't matter. I know I have a lot of math examples, but you can do whatever you'd like to do. Just put it up there and again, write on the screen, or you can have things that are already up there. Over here, again, we're reviewing skills where we can have, it's really nice because you can have, a prompt or a paragraph up here, and you can, just like how you would do in your class, does anybody want to read? And then say, who would like to read the first 2 paragraphs? Or the first 2 stanzas, and then you can unmute and then have the kids. It's just a different way to kind of have them collaborate with that. And you can either go and type in the answers, or again, write on the screen. And for your students that don't necessarily like to talk, I know as a teacher, I try to, be engaging and have students write and talk in the chat. But as an actual participant, it scares me. I don't write in the chat, I don't talk, it makes me nervous. So you can always, if they don't like to talk, you can make sure that you hit the little chat feature. In Zoom, it's in the more, and then you hit chat. But if it's in Google Hangouts, there's a little box up to the right-hand corner, and you can click on that. And as you talk, you want to make sure that you go and you view the chat as you go. And for me, that helps me slow down, because oftentimes I talk too fast, or I get nervous, or I trip over my words, or I continue to go off and to the right. So looking at the chat really helps me slow down, and it helps me see how my students are doing. Now, going back to starting my class, I often like to start my class with a game. Now, it doesn't matter what games that you use. Remember, I like to use QUIA, and I'll show you some other games that I tend to use. I like using QUIA because they're ready-made games. I can go and oftentimes I might use a Google form that I create as an exit ticket, or maybe an entrance ticket, or I can use a quiz that I use as a Google form. The challenge with that is you have to actually create it. And if you're creating that and you're grading, and a lot of us are teachers and we're parents or we're tutors, and we have a lot of stuff going on. So any shortcuts that we can use really is helpful. So again, I share my screen, and then oftentimes I have a poll pod and have the students put their answers in that. Now, for my school, I use Adobe Connect, and I didn't see that in the chat. Adobe Connect is awesome. I can go and I can share my screen, and then the kids can actually respond in the chat right over there. Now, I know that some people don't typically use that. So I'm going to show you a different way to do that. Now, pros to this is, when I start my class off with a game, is that it allows time for students to come in. For example, if I have a 2 o'clock meeting, you oftentimes might have students that come in at 2:02 or 2:05. And just like how you are starting your day in your class, that first couple of minutes, you're, trying to, check your roster, you're trying to, check homework, or whatever reasons. You don't want to start right away, because then you have a lot of questions of, well, what are we on? What are we doing? So it's just a fun way to start class. And with QUIA, you can find activities on most topics, as well as some of the other things that I'll share. The con of this is, again, it's a shared activity. So yes, you can access QUIA for free. If I go back to the QUIA. Again, I have a paid account that I use, but I often like using the free account. And in order to share those games or that activities, you can go and just click on the URL. It's awesome. Do students log into QUIA? Sometimes if you have a paid account, they can log in, but a lot of times you just copy the URL and it's free. Let's see. So creating polls in the class. Now I'm going to try to attempt to do this time. Last time it didn't work. Now, for those of you that don't have Adobe, I like to use Poll Everywhere. And again, you're going to get this presentation and all of the links are live. Now, I like using Poll Everywhere. And let me move my things. Now, I have an account and it's a free account. Now, my free account, it only has 40 responses per activity. But you can also, if you pay for it, which I honestly don't know how much it is to have the 700 responses, but you can go and you can create your poll everywhere. There are a lot of different activities or different websites that you can use. I know Nearpod is really great to be able to do that. It's kind of like where you have a PowerPoint and you can have your polls, live polls in your classroom. But you can access your new polls and you can create the polls. I like to keep it simple and easy. So select the answer and I can do A, B, C, and I can create that. Now, I like to use this, and the reason why I just did A, B, or C, or 1, 2, 3, and 4 is just a way where I can quickly get their answer. Now, I like to use, you know, we have multiple choice questions on the end of the standardized test, so you want to make sure that you have those types of questions, and that will allow me to, when I display a question, I can go and say, okay, well, which answer can I throw away and why? But this is just a way that I can quickly have something over here. And I typically tell my students to have 2 screens. And you can do that if you, I don't know if you saw me do this, but I drug it down. And then now I'm just rearranging my windows where I can have 2 students or 2 windows. Now, I know that's kind of hard depending on the students that you may have and the computer that you may have. Sometimes students access this through an iPad or a tablet, so you may not be able to do that. But you see that you have different options where you can either, they can respond by either going to Poll Everywhere, and you can drop this in the chat. Let's see if I can. So what I'm going to do is actually try this and drop this in the chat. Now, you won't be able to click on it for the Zoom things. So you might have to actually highlight it and right click on it. And then you will be able to copy it in a different tab or a different window so you can actually respond. Now, I need to activate it first, sorry. I tend to not show my responses because I want the students to be able to see, because sometimes when you show their responses, they end up changing their responses. So let me try to show you an activity to demonstrate what it would look like. So I have something that I got from QUIA. Again, super easy. If I wanted to show the kids, I just copy it and then I just put it in there. Now they can go and they can answer the question. So in my live learning lesson, if I am doing a review activity, if this is something that I'm trying to show or start off or finish my example or finish my live lesson, I can go and have this, and then they can give me their responses. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. They can either use a cell phone and they can join it by, clicking on this. And oftentimes I will have this showing up and kids can actually respond that way. Now, it would be awesome if you can go into that and see what it looks like on the student side. You can go to Poll Everywhere. Let me see if I can do that. And you see how I clicked on that. That was a link. And I can go and, okay, let's see. If I want to be A, B, C, or D, I can, select that. And the kids or the students can go and they can put their names on there or not put their names on there. It's just a different way to respond. Now, I know that this can be a little overwhelming to try to have the technology. I get that. It's something more that you can learn. But for my tech savvy folks, it might be just a different way to, you know, easily show their responses. And when they show their responses, oh, I already have some people that are doing that. So this is what I would have on my screen. I would have them either text it, but sometimes, you know, students don't have phones. Awesome. Sometimes they might be able to respond by, you know, going to the website. But now in my classroom, I either have, you know, B or C. So I'm seeing that many people are telling me C, so I can click on that, and then I see that C is incorrect. Now with this QUIA, with this rags to riches, if they make it wrong, then they have to start over again. And then you can see that in this actual activity that it starts all over again. So the questions kind of jumble up, and it also depends on how the person created that. Now, I actually like when sometimes students get things wrong because it gives me the opportunity to teach. So I can go and click on here, and then I say, okay, well, what can we do? Well, how would I move over this -2? And then I would go to the chat, and they can tell me what would be my first step. And then I can go and I can add the 2 to both sides and then go on from there. Yeah, it is a lot like Kahoot. The difference with Kahoot and this is Kahoot gives you the time, and it gives you is a time limit, and sometimes it makes people uneasy. So this is unlimited. They can go in and they can answer their questions. Sometimes you might be able to have this as independently. If you share your screen, you can do this as, you know, as a group. And even when we go back into our regular face-to-face classrooms, this is just a quick and easy tool that you can use in your classroom. Oh, so when you create your poll, your poll or your poll everywhere, and in this presentation, once you get this, I will actually, even though I go over it, sometimes when you're processing it and you're looking at it and you're listening at the same time, you go to do it and you're like, well, what did she just do? So I have some step-by-step instructions to kind of show you how to go through all of this. When you go through here and you create your poll, again, it's a free account. I tend to activate your poll. They won't be able to see it if they can't activate it. Let's see, I typically don't show my responses until after they have answered the questions. And the reason for that is a lot of times they change their responses based off of, you know, how other people do that. And you don't really get a clear understanding of what they're doing. Especially for math, what I would tend to do is I have them get out a separate sheet of paper. Oftentimes I might not necessarily care about the actual answer, but how they get to the answer. So we can talk about steps, or we can talk about process of elimination, throwing away, you know, answers that don't make sense. And then this clear response, the reason why I like using poll everywhere is that can clear the response and go to the next question without having to create a poll. And I like to keep it simple. So you can, again, create a poll that has answer choices, but this is something quick and easy that you can go in and have your class do. So it's kind of like, even if you're in a face-to-face environment and your kids have cell phones, if you're, you know, your kids are a little bit older, they can respond in that. It's kind of like having a clicker by, you know, by using their own device. Does it show responses to all the students? Okay. I tell the students to open a different tab and they can text their response. The thing with the tab, a lot of times you want to make sure that you know, practice this. It is overwhelming at first, so I can totally get that. Okay, so this is something that I would show the students if it helps if you have 2 different screens. So on one screen, you're going to have, you know, their question, and on the other screen, they'll have this. If they have a cell phone, that's awesome. And even perhaps maybe if you were in a face-to-face environment, when we go back to class, you can have on the screen, and then if you have a, you know, a class set of, you know, Chromebooks or a class set of iPads, they can go and create that as well. Again, another activity is really sweet because remember, in order to share the activity, you just copy the URL and you can give to the students. You can send them this link, and it's a free link. All of the shared activities are free. You can send it as an exit ticket. or they can upload the link as an assignment. So for those of you that are struggling to try to find things to upload into your Canvas site or in your Google Classroom, you can go and you can find a lot of these different activities. And again, they're completely free. One thing that you want to make sure that you do is that you want to tell the students to make a screenshot. You don't want them to copy and paste. So even though while you copy and paste the question or the link to get to the activity, if they copy and paste their answers, so you see how we reached to a million, and what they tend to do is they try to copy this. This is specific to their computer. So when you go to link on it, it won't work. So they have to take a screenshot of their results. And I like to tell them to take a screenshot because I want to be able to see the actual URL or the time. You have some students that are a little tech savvy, so they will go and they will take a screenshot of the actual, because all of the ranks or riches, if they win, they will come up over here and they will use that every single time without doing the activity. And, it doesn't have to be, up until 1 million. They can go and they can go to 16,000 or they can go to 4,000. You can try to have them, it's up to you how you want to do this. Oftentimes I might have them if they get to 8,000, then I can see what problem that they missed, and then I can send them a video or I can go over that with them the next time. Now, one of the questions is, how do I take a screenshot? So I have this on my website or in my Canvas class or, in my Google Drive form that I have for them. And here's what type of computer that you have. And then if the Chromebook, a PC, or a Mac, these are the pictures that they might have to use. Sometimes pictures help, sometimes videos help. So this is a video that I created for the students. Now, this is, again, you'll have access to this, so feel free to use it or change it, or sometimes it might help just going and looking at something else and then creating your own that might help. So I know that I've shared a lot with you. So I'm going to take a break for just a few minutes and answer any questions. And Chris, if you want,
Tiff, I have a couple that came up in the,
awesome.
Yes, ma'am, because we have a couple in the chat. I just want to make sure we address. Lisa, a while back in the chat asked, when we first started introducing these different poll pod and poll everywhere and some things on the screen, how accessible is it for visually impaired students? Is there anything that you've done to help visually impaired students in that situation?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure with QUIA. I know that in Canvas, when we go in and we put things in, there is a way where it will read to you. I'm not sure if they do that in QUIA.
Okay, and Lisa, what I would suggest too is we do have a office hours webinar that was archived on our site, so I'll post that link back up there. And there's one specifically on accessibility. Where do I start? I might want to look at it. Look at taking what you've learned. Stephanie asked about the tools you're using to write on the screen. I know you're going to touch on that later. And so we'll make sure to get that. Sean had a question about the Zoom polling. I wasn't sure and I checked online. He wanted to know, because Zoom does have a polling feature. Didn't know
awesome.
if it was free. Yeah, I didn't know if it was in the free version though.
I do not know. I'm fortunate to have the Adobe, so I'm not really sure. You can always put them in the chat. It's just a way to, another way, I'm not sure how to do that. Sorry.
And no, that's okay. And Sean, I was looking in the background here too, and it does say one of the prerequisites, it's an add-on. If it's an add-on, I'm not sure, but if it's an add-on, it might not be available in the free version, but I'll keep checking for you on that one. That's pretty much the questions we've had. A lot of good questions that you've already addressed going through.
Awesome. Some of the questions that I'm seeing is...
So I will turn it on back to you.
Thank you.
No, go ahead.
Some of the questions that I'm seeing is what I used to write. So I actually put it in the slide. So again, once I'll go over it and I'll show you some of the things that I do. You can also go back in there so you don't have to write it down. Now, other websites that I tend to use, I'm seeing some great things in the chat, and I'll go over here. So for math, again, remember I'm a math teacher. So I like using Khan Academy. Again, it's quick and easy to search. I can go and I just went and I searched solving equations. And what I like to do is once I go and I get the online activities, I take the link and I will embed it into my announcement. I'll embed it into the assignment. And it's great because with Khan Academy, you can watch a video and see how to do it. The con with this is that sometimes the material doesn't quite match the North Carolina standards. So you have to be careful and make sure that you vet it. Same thing with IXL. Let's see. Trying to get out of this. Hold on for a second. Okay, here it goes. So IXL, what I like to do this, and I want to take a break just to show you this IXL. Now, this again is just, I did solving equations, just a quick example to show how to do it. I like this because it is free, and I can go and the kids, remember I had the solving equations, and then if you, again, just like how QUIA is really simple, quick and easy, copy that, highlight it, and then right click on it and you can copy it. And then you can put it into whatever assignment or activity that you want them to do. I like IXL. This is the free version. There is a paid version, but this free version is awesome because it allows them to practice. And what I like about for the math is it shows them how to do it or gives them an explanation in a way that's very similar to how I would solve it as a teacher. Now, the downside of this is there's a daily practice limit. So I want to say it's probably about 10 problems. So it depends. Now, I know that I've spent a lot of time on math and I've spent a lot of time on middle grades and high school math. And I know I have some elementary folks and some foreign languages up here. So if you go and you click on the IXL, if you can look, you can see that it has math and language arts. I have my science teachers and social studies, and you have the different types of skills that are there. And again, all of this is free. You can give this to your student. The downside is they have a 10-day, daily limit. So the kids can practice this, maybe as an exit ticket, tell them to take a screenshot of it. You can go and you can share your screen as well. One little tip that I like to use is if I hit command find or control F, then I can go and I can type in if I'm looking for, the Bill of Rights, or if I'm looking for a certain thing, it helps me narrow down some things. So again, this is for any type of discipline or your major disciplines. And again, it is remember the con is there's a daily limit. So again, I tell them to practice until they reach that limit and take a screenshot of it. I saw some people in the chat that told me about quizzes. Now, I love using quizzes. And the reason why I like using quizzes is I don't typically use it for using it as a classroom. I tend to use it because I like getting multiple choice questions, and I take it and I either use the same types of equations or same types of questions for my exit tickets, which are Google Forms, or I use it as, test questions or assignments or whatever. And I can go in there, and this is free. You can have the kids and you can assign it to have them play. Sometimes you assign things and you create a lot of things. We spend a lot of time creating stuff and then the kids don't do it. So this is a way for us to create it, and we do it live in our lesson. And I like to go and I like to take and show the answer, and then I like to copy it and then use it. So it's kind of like going online, and I can kind of peruse and add, what questions that I like. So this is just a way for my test bank questions that I love using. And you can go and you can type in, if you go up to the top, and you can find whatever questions you want. And it's not just for math, but I can go in and type in over there at the top, and then I have access to all of these different great things, and I can pick and choose. So again, you don't have to have, this is a free account. You can create your own account, and you can go in and you can duplicate it. And so if you click this, well, not that one, but you can duplicate it. I'm not sure where it's at right now. But you can duplicate it and create your own one and take things out. But I oftentimes just take the questions and then create it on my own. And then there's Quizlet, which is also a really cool feature. I know I saw it in the chat as well that a lot of students use Quizlet, or as teachers use Quizlet. It's a way to practice vocabulary. Again, this is free. You can go and whenever you want to share an activity, just highlight it and then right click on it, and then you can copy and paste it. Now, this is them practicing, but I like to use this match feature, and then you can start the game and then they can go and they can match it up. Now, one of the things is, again, this is a free version where you are just talking about the actual like words. If you want to start adding in pictures, then you have to have a paid account. Oftentimes you can probably have it as, you know, a department or a team, and they all have access to that. I want to say the paid feature might be $20 or $30, and I share all of these things with them. I saw that in the chat earlier is the QUIA of, do I have a paid account? I have access to a paid account, but I don't use it all the time because I don't create different things. It's nice to have a paid account for some things, especially with QUIA, because I can go in, remember there's shared activities, so if there's a mistake, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can go in there and I can duplicate it and then change things out. The con for this is the time component and the match game, so you have to be careful with that because it causes students to rush. Whenever I'm looking for something, I just go and Google solving equations and then online practice. So whatever you're looking for, if you're looking for eliminating the best answer, if you're looking for science cells, or you're talking about social studies and you're talking about geography, you do geography and then online practice, and then that will give you some online activities that you can either use as assignments or you can use as something that you do in your regular class. Oh yeah, the competition of Quizlet is very motivating. So let's take a look at some of the questions that are in the chat where, how do I write on the screen? You see that I'm writing on the screen right now as using my mouse. The pros to that is not needing the equipment. The cons, it can be very frustrating because I have to go in and actually use my keypad or use my mouse to click on it. So the suggestion would be to write out as much as possible so you don't have to do a lot of writing. Now I have a Bamboo tablet, and it's little work, so you can just plug it in and it's great, but it can be temperamental, meaning that sometimes my pen out of nowhere just zooms in. So the Bamboo tablet is a small it looks like a big mouse pad, and you have the link and you just plug it into, it has a cord, and you plug it into your computer, and then that's it. And then you have a pen and you can write on it. So I want to say that I've seen some that can be $50 to $150. So that could be a con, is it can be a little pricey. So you can use your mouse a suggestion is to use your mouse wherever you want to write, because it can be a pain to try to figure out where your pen is. So if you have one, see, I'm over here at Possible. I put my mouse over here and then I use my pen, and I like to use it where I can underline and highlight or whatever I need to do. A cheaper version of that is a Bamboo stylus. It's similar to the tablet. You just use your computer mouse trackpad and you have the pen. I personally love my Surface Pro. It's my fave because it can be a little pricey, but I like it because I can download the file as a PDF and then make a recording of me as I'm going through it. And then I can post the video and that PDF. The con, again, it can be a little bit pricey. Again, I'm not making a promotion for any of these. You have to vet this on your own. This is just something that I've used, that I have found anything that will save me some time is what I use. A suggestion is make a video of your worked out solutions and then answer that. It's really, really sweet. And then a lot of us have iPads in our classrooms or access to it. One of the pros is that you can use your stylus or your finger. If you click on this iOS screen recording app or this Explain Everything, I think the iOS screen recording is free. I think Explain Everything might be $9. It's a little bit harder to pull up some files, so you might need to use Google Drive. And then some people, get creative and they use their document cam to connect on their screen. One of these things over here that I saw with this web paint, how I got to that is I just Googled web paint add-on, and then you can click on that. And then you can add the extension. So I can't remove it because it's already up there. A question that I typically get was, how do I get my images? You can, again, go to the Bitmoji add-on, and a Bitmoji add-on is this little green box up here. And you, in order to get these little avatars, you have to go on your phone first and then download that Bitmoji app and then make your avatar to make it kind of look like you. And I love it because it's my way to add my humor into my classroom. So I, have smiley faces, but you see where I have the, little stop line if my students are not answering their questions. Let me go back to my side. If they are not doing what I want them to do, if I want them to stop and read over their answers, I can go and grab it and then bring it down. And then, add your little text box. And then I can, type blah, 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 blah. So this is a good time to stop and answer any questions that you may have. So Chris, if there are any questions in the chat or any trending questions, go ahead and let me know.
As long as that red face is not directed towards me, we're good to go on with some questions. One question that came up from Lori is, how do you do a screenshot? I believe are you going to cover that in a little bit?
The screenshot over here, it just depends on the computer that you have. So it's in this presentation. If you can, this is a picture where these are the buttons that you will have to use. And then they open up a blank document and they can go and do it that way. If you go on this next slide, it will have a video showing you how to actually take your screenshot. Depending on your computer, you either have to hit the print screen button, or you have to, with my Mac, I have to actually hit certain buttons.
There you go. Thank you. And you've done an amazing job of answering questions as they come up. But I have a question, and that's, you've taken a lot, because I want to make sure a lot of people have good questions in the chat. I want to make sure I know everyone might not be able to into that. You've shown us a lot of tools, poll, pop, poll everywhere. Why do you use those? And kind of, me, I'm always going to, work smarter, not harder. I'm always coming back to the why. So why are we using those in the online lesson?
Absolutely. So when I use the poll pods are a way to engage my students. So when they come in and they're logging in, even if we're on the screen or if we're face to face, when we try to, my Quizlet or my games are just a way for me to get the kids, to trick them into learning. So it's just the type of way that instead of having a worksheet, I have a little game to it. So I use Quizlet, and I saw in the chat, do people use it for elementary? Yes, you can use it for elementary. Again, it's free, or you can go and you can search. You just figure out what it is to search for. That helps me really, I use those to really focus in on vocabulary, key things to help me go in and talk about the math. I tend to use QUIA or quizzes when I am talking about concepts, or I want them to just have the practice. So it's just a different way to look at things.
Thank you for that one. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. And you know me, I'm always full of questions. So, and I'm trying to put my mind in some of the people in the back of our virtual room that might not have asked a question. There are so many different things that you've shown us, but my district uses Google. So is there something that I already have that I could use to do some of these things?
Yes. So here's the structure in your lesson. So I tend to use Google Forms a lot. So if you go into your Google Drive, you can create your exit ticket or whatever assignment using Google Forms. And you can create the Google Forms by using and I'll show an example of it. This is, let's see, if I go down to the bottom of it. So here's my little Google form, and I can go and I can create it. Now, this is actually the student version of it, but I made this as an actual quiz. So again, sometimes it's hard to kind of create. Remember, I'm work smarter, not harder. So these questions I took from quizzes, and I just copied and pasted into there. And you can assign your points, and it can give them feedback. You kind of want to make sure that you change your share settings a little bit so they can actually see it. But this is something that if you have Google Suite, you already have access to this. And it'll give you responses in a Google spreadsheet, or you can have a nice picture of it. So it's just a different way to kind of look at things.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I used to use Google Forms a lot too. And actually there was a add-on that I used called Fubaloo, which would actually, if I did it as a quiz, it would grade it for me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Turn it to.
Okay. So over here, I want to, be mindful of your time. I have examples that you can actually click on. So I just showed you, this is just a way to kind of structure your lessons. Now, remember, I'm a little bit different. So I have this activity over here would be about an hour. So here is my quizzes, and I have, just to put a little bling to it, I have my Bitmoji that I clicked on and I dragged it down. And then in my mind, I have, if I want to have the link to it, this is something that I have down here. The great thing about using Google is I can take this and make this kind of like a template. I can go over here and then make a copy of the entire presentation and then change it up the next time. And again, remember I have, let's see, where is it at? I have my warm up, my announcements, my objective, the key terms, kind of the things that you kind of need to have, checked off in your class. And then I have, important vocabulary. And these are the things that I would kind of go over as a class. And you see I have a little anonymous raccoon over here. I tend to give the kids access to the slides beforehand. So after this, I actually have to give a live lesson to my students. I give this to them beforehand. Oh, here's another one where they can go and they can print it off and they know what we're going over. And again, you can either write over here if you do the web paint, but a lot of times I use my Surface Pro when I write in there. And so I like to start off with a game. I have, different different activities where they can go and they can write the answers, and I use this in the chat. So just like how I would do at the document camera, I do online. And then I always end up with that exit ticket. And then once I get that feedback, then I can go and once I get that feedback, I can go and pull this up the next time and we can go and we can answer it. And then when you have that paint option, you can go and you can write right on the screen. So it's pretty cool. And I have a variety of different examples that you can actually use. And sometimes it takes seeing something and then realizing, nope, I don't like that. And then you go from there, then starting from scratch. Now, when I first started, it took me a little bit longer, but that actual PowerPoint that I had probably took me about 10 minutes because I had to figure out what I needed to do. And I went in and I grabbed different things by taking a screenshot and I just changed it up a little bit. Now, one of the things that I want to leave you with is recording your sessions. Now, I saw people using either Zoom or Google Hangouts. If you use Zoom, you can go up to the top and hit meeting and then record, and then you can record your activities or you record your lesson. And the reason why I do that is because sometimes students don't come in. So you want to be able to have this. Depending on your school, depending on their Google Suite option, you might be able to actually record in Google Hangouts. And here's how you do it. You basically, at the bottom right corner, once you hit your Google Hangout meeting, when you create it, you hit the 3 dots and then you can record the meeting. Now, it depends on your school. Like this is from virtual school. Cyber Academy, we didn't have that option. So it really just depends. And then, this just brings you through the steps. You'll have access to this. You stop the recording. And then towards the end, at the bottom of it, it will, when you finish recording, you'll receive an email, but it takes 5 to 10 minutes. You have to be patient. But if you look down at the bottom left-hand corner, it says meeting details, and you click on attachments, and then you can have your actual recording. And then I tend to have, now this is just an example, I have the date, I have the topics, the PowerPoint that I have up there, that's how they have access to it, and then my recording. Now remember, this is just an example, so you won't be able to actually view the recording, but I think you should be able to review the PowerPoints. So it's just a way to kind of organize yourself. Another way that you can do this is you can create a Screencast-O-Matic, which is very similar to what I think people are using as Screencastify. And Screencast-O-Matic is, you can start, it's a free app or a free thing. You can just go to Screencast-O-Matic, and then I have the paid version, which is like $30, but you do not have to. The main difference between the paid version and the free version is the time limit. With the free version, you have a 15-minute time limit. So this is just a workaround just in case you do not have access to the Google Hangout recording or the Zoom. And this is another way that you can create your videos. When I am making videos for my students, I tend to pull up, an example or an activity, and you see how I am just going and I am, adjusting my screen. And as I adjust my screen, I tend to have it in Google Hangouts or Google, what is this? Google Sheets, or not Sheets, PowerPoint, Google Slides, hello. And then you can go and you can toggle back between that. And then you just hit record. You can sit there and have either the screen or both, and they can see your picture. I always look like death warmed over, so I do not show my face. I just have my screen, and it's great because now I can record, and you can click over here, and you see how I have this little screen, so I can write on here. I can change this option, and I can highlight if I'm highlighting keywords. And it's great because then you can pause it and say, for example, I stumbled over my word. I don't like that. So I'm going to go back a little bit, and you can click it again, and then you can truncate it. So you can start and go as you please. I want to say with Screencastify, you may have it where I think once you start over again, you have to start all over again, but Screencast-O-Matic is awesome. You don't have to do that. So that is just a kind of workaround. You will get access to this in a little bit. And this kind of just walks you through the steps of having to write or how to, upload your video. Once you save it, you want to make sure that you save it to a video file and not to the actual server. The reason being with that is that sometimes the server goes down, but if you save it, you can go and you can name it, and then you can upload it into your Google file or your Google Drive. And then here is showing you some examples of how to do that. So let me screen that up. So this shows you how you want to change it, and you want to make sure you change it for anyone with the link. When you upload it, it goes to private access, or any file that you upload into your drive, it always has it as private. You want to make sure that you change it to anybody with the link by clicking on the change button, and then that will be a way for your students to get to it. So again, this is just, I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly, but you will have access to this afterwards, and you can go step by step of how to do it. So I appreciate you guys coming. This is my email. I know I kind of rushed at the end. I apologize for that. But if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'm here for questions if you have any.
Tiffany, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for coming today. Tiffany, you did not disappoint. I always have a great time working with Tiffany on projects, and now you all see why. As you take some of this stuff, one of the things I was thinking about as you were finishing up there, Tiff, is as everybody is looking at all the things you've introduced them to, there are things face and just increase that engagement in your face-to-face classroom as well. So thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that. Everyone, you'll receive an email with a link for the information for CEUs based on the email that you registered with. We'll hang out for a little bit if you have any questions. And again, thank you for coming. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions after it, and you can catch the archived webinars on our website. And Catherine, I am checking for the survey for you right now.